and we're live. You're listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show.
Hosted by Brandon Davenport, aka It's Brandon D.
How's it going, everybody? Hederians, Hashgraphians, HBARBarians. Also people on the people on LinkedIn. All you suits over there. I'm just kidding. Honestly, I have to update my LinkedIn bio. And on my whole LinkedIn thing. I was getting the show set up to stream on LinkedIn, and I was like, Jesus Christ, my whole setup on LinkedIn is foobarred. So I'll ask anyone watching on LinkedIn right now, please just like wait a week before visiting my profile or anything like that. It's all messed up. So it is what it is. HBAR News, how's it going? Good to see you. Yeah, you can leave a comment if you're watching right now on LinkedIn, YouTube, and X. Leave a comment. I'm interested to know what the important news is out there in the Hedera ecosystem. What's top of mind for you? So leave a comment. I'll be happy to talk about it. If you have questions, I can bring them up on screen. Hashgraph Enthusiasts, episode 140. Behind closed doors. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about this week. The show is live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on X, YouTube, and LinkedIn, and all that kind of good stuff. Got a lot to talk about. I'm going to have Ashe from the barking game, HBARK token, on the show today to chat. He'll be stopping by in about half an hour. Really looking forward to it. I think that community engagement is so important. The barking game is kind of, killing it, to be honest. But we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. Let's kind of dive into it here. Off the top, HBAR, the beloved token of us all. What's going on with HBAR? Let's take a look at CoinMarketCap. This is a website that ranks all the crypto tokens by market cap. We've got HBAR. Chilling at 42, down a couple places. The other thing was, I think that there was an HBAR supply of 1 billion tokens released into circulation. So obviously that would have some kind of impact. But HBAR has enjoyed some time in the 30s, but we've been spending more time in the 40s. We're still below 5 cents. And this is such a, I know that CoinMarketCap is kind of like played out a bit. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's a vanity metric, but it's something that's posted a lot and all that kind of stuff. But it is pretty true that as we're going to talk today about like kind of analytics and KPIs and stuff like that. A CoinMarketCap ranking is like really important. It really is indicative of the success of a crypto project. And I get that, the methodologies and stuff is, maybe there's some inaccuracies or whatever it might be, but everyone pays attention to this. It's like the Billboard 100 of cryptos, so it's like, it's important to rank in there. So HBAR, struggling a little bit as of late. But stuff is generally following Bitcoin. There's a lot of macro factors, but as we've discussed on the show ad nauseum, there are issues in this ecosystem and problems and opportunities that we're working towards. So how's it going, Theo? Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. I did a post yesterday or Monday. Can't remember. I was just I was surprised. I think like 130 people liked it. I don't know. It was me by the Hollywood sign. I was just kind of vibing a little bit, I guess. It's like a lot of people give me ideas about what I can do with the show and how I can grow it and like this and that and get it sponsored and get, you know, Hedera to support me and blah, blah, blah. It's like, to be honest, I like doing it. There's people that have been we're 140 episodes in. There's people that have been watching since episode 1, literally every week. So I do it for those folks, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. And also too, if you want to support the show, this has been an ongoing initiative for the show. Haven't really been asking for contributions as of late, just because I've been doing so much. But I've got some new plans. If you want to support the show, you can send some HBAR to the official wallet, 0.0.1725506, 1725506. Follow on platforms, all that kind of stuff. It's a vibe. Appreciate anybody that gives some support to the show. The big news of last week was DeRec, of course. Quick shout out to Hashpack. They joined the DeRec Alliance alongside new members, Input Output, aka Cardano developer. So this was a pretty big event last week. There was a call that was held between leaders of these various ecosystems talking about DeRec, the future, plans, all that kind of stuff. And as you can see here, founding members, Algorand, Cardano, Hedera, Ripple, XRPL Labs. Then we've got Bank Social, Acor, Blade, the building blocks, Casper, Constellation, HBAR Foundation, Hashgraph Association, Hashpack, Oasis. Like, there's some serious players in this. And I think that the key piece for me, watching that stream, the DeRec live stream, there was a post, I'm pretty sure, that I shared. Where was it? There it is. Check this out. This is a post I did. This is a screenshot from the video. It's crazy, right? You got Charles Atkins, Hedera president, David from Ripple X, John Woods from Algorand, Romian from Input Output, Lehman Baird from Hedera or Hashgraph, aka Swirlds Labs, Charles Hoskins from Input Output and Cardano and all that kind of stuff. So pretty wild stuff. Like, this was a pretty major, event last week that kicked off. And for me, you know, the key insights were really some context. Like, I think Lehman did a really good job of framing this well, that what we need is we need standardization of secret recovery, right? Whether it's passwords or your mom's cake recipe or your private keys in crypto. And it's really, really hard to get a coalition of, let's say, like LastPass and 1Password and all these different password programs, or Apple and Microsoft with their different passkey things, or all those organizations are so hard to bring together. And there's opportunity in crypto because these networks are starting out. They're effectively startups. And so there's a real opportunity to actually take this initiative in crypto. And that's kind of the cool angle to it, where it's like, yeah, it's going to branch out to all sorts of other things. But the start of it is just in crypto. And last week, that was a pretty big announcement. And also too, there was a great piece in Genfinity, the Genfinity blog, talking about Cardano developer Input Output joined the DeRec Alliance. Also too, Hedera joined that day as well. And I think that was kind of an optics thing. Obviously, Lehman Baird being the spearhead of the DeRec Alliance, having Hedera join day one might be a little weird. So it was kind of interesting to see Hedera join this late into the game. I think it makes sense from like a marketing kind of optics, fairness standpoint, but you know, I guess why some folks kind of thought it was weird. There is this great, if you have a time to check out this video that Lehman Baird did as well with like the DeRec Alliance recovery stuff. Yeah, great piece in Genfinity. But basically the takeaways here are, and I mean, we've talked about DeRec a ton in the show, but this is just kind of Cardano joined it. I think it was rumored for a while. And so here it is. So that's pretty huge. So I'm very excited about the DeRec stuff. And now kind of the next steps are just waiting to see what those kind of first implementations look like and how users interact with it for the first time. So it'll be very interesting. Also too, kind of random. We haven't talked about these guys in a bit, but TOKO, a spinoff of DLA Piper that is a governing council member. Scott Thiel still on the Hedera governing board, but now has left TOKO and DLA Piper and is now part of Materium, or I can't remember what the startup is. But basically, TOKO is still obviously building, and they sent out a tweet September 6th. Something big is coming to TOKO. Can you guess? We're getting ready to unveil something game-changing, and they're using a bunch of hashtags, hashtag tokenization, hashtag TOKO, hashtag DeFi. And there's a lot of interest swirling around this in the Hedera community because obviously, as a subsidiary of a governing council member, it's very curious to see when governing council members start rolling out use cases on the network. And I think that's really kind of a key piece here. Rob Allen was speaking on the HBAR Bulls show last week, talking about this. And he was emphasizing that something that a lot of people don't understand is with, for example, Avery Dennison, that company invested substantially on their own for infrastructure or building out their use case. And sure, their payment, their transactions they're doing to the network are subsidized. Avery Dennison themselves, like they've spent a lot of money building out that infrastructure. And I get the sense that other governing council members are doing the same. I think that there's a lot of criticism towards the governing council, which is fair because none of this is really transparent other than Rob Allen's comments on the HBAR Bulls show, but that they aren't really these massive, multi-million, sometimes billion-dollar companies that aren't really investing substantially in the network in a public way, which is kind of weird and kind of gives you bad taste in your mouth. So that was an interesting comment from Rob. And TOKO, we'll have to kind of see what's coming. Clearly, they got something going on. I'd be surprised if it's not on Hedera. That'd be kind of shocking. So I'm pretty certain it would be on Hedera, and it has something to do with DeFi. So we'll have to see. It seems very, very interesting. Charles, how's it going? Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in, man. Also, too, update from Dropp. Folks unfamiliar, Dropp is kind of the micropayment use case on Hedera. Very interesting stuff. Most will remember last year there was an announcement with Dropp in regards to FedNow integration that kind of caught the ecosystem off guard. It caused HBAR to pump a little bit. So that was interesting. Dropp, obviously a mover and shaker in the space. They're announcing their new point of sale app. No hardware needed, accept payments right on your mobile device, scan and pay with USDC or USD or HBAR. Perfect for independent operators and small business. I know that a bottleneck for Dropp is a $20 limit for each purchase, which they're hoping to overcome. I don't know if they've overcome it yet, but I just know that as I've looked at the project recently and talked to people recently, that is kind of the main bottleneck. But it is crazy too. You think of a coffee shop or you think of someone selling something for a couple cents or something or whatever. Great use case, a good Stripe alternative, a good Square alternative, a good Shopify alternative. It's going to be interesting to see how that use case continues to roll out. And when you talk about potential enterprise use cases with a good strategy, yeah, sure, they're facing challenges, but they're dedicated to the Hedera ecosystem. To be honest, Dropp is one of those winners. So definitely support them following along. Quick mention too, at Hashgraph, obviously, as folks know, we launched the Hedera revenue dashboard, hederarevenue.com. Let's take a quick peek at it now if we want. I don't know if we want to. But here it is, revenue. Let's look at the revenue for the last week. Let's get caught up. So total revenue down 35% at $80,000 US at today's current exchange rate for the week. This is revenue generated by Hedera via transaction fees. This is the Atma.io payer account. It's widely known that those transactions are subsidized. So if we remove the Atma.io payer account, we've got $18,000 USD revenue generated via transaction fees by the network last week. But that is up 40%. So we're seeing some really good growth on the network when it comes to some of those retail use cases, with the token service bringing 42% revenue. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Really like to see it. But we did launch, the Hedera revenue dashboard. And just a quick mention that, we decided to just publish all the slides about it. So if you're curious, go to Hashgraph's X. There's a bunch of info about it. A lot of people were curious. So figured, why not make that public? Transparency vibes. I think a big news item for the week, arguably the largest, is for a use case, again, that we talk about on the show a lot. And I've had Carmel on the show before. She's awesome. I'm talking about EMTECH. That was one thing she corrected me on. I was always calling it EMTECH, and she's like, dude, it's EMTECH. So thank you, Carmel. But yeah, EMTECH, if people remember way back, in the ecosystem, there was something called Project New Dawn. It was like this early CBDC pilot built on Hedera. Carmel spun off into EMTECH, which is, again, another use case specializing in CBDCs. And I think also, stable coins and different stuff like that. Infrastructure required for governments and countries to enable tokenized economies. Especially in developing economies. I know they're doing work in Ghana and all different things like that. So very exciting stuff. The big news here, the headline on Accenture's website is Accenture invests in EMTECH to modernize central bank operations. Now, this is very, very exciting. Some quick excerpts here from the press release on, again, Accenture's website. And a quick note too, Accenture is involved in various Hedera projects. I know that they're doing some stuff with Equity Lab that is leveraging the Hedera consensus service for AI modeling. So this isn't the first time Accenture has been associated with a Hedera project, which is pretty interesting. Couple excerpts here is this investment made through Accenture Ventures will support EMTECH in its efforts to transform central banks' financial and technology infrastructure and make it easier for central banks to regulate and supervise fintechs in an increasingly digital economy. There was a great article recently, I don't have it on me, but it was talking about the ramp up of new fintech companies and the amount of money that's transacted and held on those companies. So there's tons of growth in that sector. Another excerpt from this release is, our investment in EMTECH will enable Accenture to help central banks modernize their payment systems, enhance their supervisory capabilities, develop the critical infrastructure needed for tokenization and central banking digital currency. That's Oliver Rappel, the managing director in Accenture's banking practice. So obviously going in. And a quote from Carmel, the co-founder and CEO of EMTECH. This investment and collaboration are the result of a shared vision to guide banks into modernizing their infrastructure and process for the era of tokenization. So this is big stuff. This is a use case that a lot of people are interested in. Now, there was concerns because, a lot of these use cases that we've heard a billion times, things move slow. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And there were some concerns of like, are they still building on Hedera? Can we confirm that? Because I know that we've had a few use cases in this ecosystem that have migrated from Hedera for various reasons, maybe lack of liquidity or support or whatever you might, anyone would kind of choose a different network. But there was a tweet posted by Carmel responding to a question to this effect. And she says, thank you for your support along the way. And yes, we're still working with Hedera for our CBDC. I have not found another protocol that meets our standards for a CBDC. So right there, this is a Hedera project. Very exciting stuff. I don't think it can be understated how cool this is to have a CBDC use case at this time of this caliber on Hedera. Yes, astute observation, HBAR News. I wonder if that website is still up. Let's see if this website's still up. Let's go deep, guys. Yeah, it is still up. Let's see. Yep. That's a great observation. So HBAR News said, Microsoft is a partner in Project New Dawn. And as you can see, we've got Carmel here as the president and CEO of EMTECH, formerly IBM, some other folks here. This is kind of a more all-encompassing initiative in regards to CBDC type stuff. And as you can see here, in collaboration with EMTECH, Hedera Hashgraph, Microsoft. Microsoft has been attached to a few different use cases on Hedera. So obviously there's been tons of rumors about them joining the governing council, this and that. So who knows, to be honest, but good observation. What else we got going on? Oh yeah. HIP 580. This was a very interesting thing. So HIP 580 is an addition to what we talked about previously, which was mutable NFTs on Hedera. So folks unfamiliar, I think I had Patches on the show a while back talking about this, but I think it was HIP, what was it? HIP 657, if I'm right. If I'm right, I'm going to freak myself out. Oops. Yeah, man, I need help. I'm memorizing HIP numbers, Jesus. So this is a HIP from Patches, originally HIP 657, just for some background. This is about mutable metadata. So essentially having a new key on a non-fungible token on Hedera, similar to an admin key or a supply key or a freeze key or whatever, to allow you to update the metadata attached to the NFT remotely. So dynamic NFTs. So essentially if you have like, let's say a baseball card NFT, being able to update the player stats on the baseball card inside of people's wallets. Not saying this is required. You can always have mutable NFTs. But in regards to backwards compatibility, you kind of go, oh, that's awesome. I have this collection or I have this NFT that I really have been meaning to update, but it was created before HIP 657. It was created before, mutable metadata on Hedera. What do I do? So what this HIP 850 is about and addresses is leveraging the supply key to bring this same functionality to NFTs released before HIP 657, but you have to have it in your wallet. So basically what this means is, yeah, for sure, you can update your backwards compatible NFT, but the exception, the catch here is that it has to be in the Treasury wallet. So what this HIP means is if you have a supply key on a collection, an NFT collection, if you bring an NFT from that collection into the Treasury wallet, right, the wallet that minted the NFT, you can use that supply key to update the metadata. So I think a really necessary addition for some projects for backwards compatibility, and very cool. They got some code examples here, all sorts of different ideas for how it can be used. But this is an important update. So HIP 850, bullish on HIP 850. Also, this is great. Wall Street Journal with an article about Firefest. Fire Festival 2 is happening. The only question is where and when and how. And I know we've probably all watched the documentaries, Billy McFarland, the disaster that was Firefest. But as we also know, he competed in karate combat in the influencer program. Same one that May from Hashpack did. I can't recall if he won or not. Shout out if he did, Billy. But in this Wall Street Journal piece, he mentioned karate combat. He says, karate combat on the beach. I think that would be amazing. So only LARPing, obviously the founder of Karate Combat, tread carefully into Firefest 2. Get paid. But yeah, I think that's pretty awesome stuff. Mentioned in the Wall Street Journal. I dig it. I want to chat now about a clip from the HBAR Bulls show. And I know that we've got Ashe from the barking game from HBARK stopping by probably in just about 5 or 10 minutes here, which I'm really excited about. But I wanted to just touch on this clip from Rob at the HBAR or on the HBAR Bulls show. And I'm going to pull it up here, and then we'll just kind of react to it a little bit here. So, also too, that was a great episode last week, with the HBAR Bull. Holy cow! We'll talk about that after we get done chatting with Ashe. We'll chat about some other stuff, what's behind closed doors. But yeah, let's take a look at this clip with Rob Allen and the HBAR Bull.
We are keenly interested from the Governing Council perspective because the foundation is a pillar of the ecosystem that we, are so passionate about, and not having leadership, proper leadership in that foundation is detrimental to the ecosystem. We've seen over the last few months the absence of leadership, for the last 3 months. Leading up to where we are today, has caused all sorts of issues and problems in the community. Whether it's right or not, this is Web3. This is going to happen, and so we need, I believe we need strong leadership. We need transparency, and there is a need for the foundation or a foundation to fulfill the role that we set it. And I wrote the RFP for the foundation when I was on the Governing Council 3 years ago. So I'm very familiar with what
that's an important part there, right? Rob Allen referencing that when he was on the Governing Council, he wrote the request for proposal for the foundation, specifying what they're supposed to do. So speaking here from a point of authority for sure.
Expectations of the original expectations of the Governing Council were for the foundation, and I'm not sure that that has been fulfilled yet. So I'm expecting, or I'm hoping that the new CEO, whenever they're appointed by the THF board, is true to those original principles that were set down for it.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. But that's a great point from Rob Allen, right? I mean, it's really, really, really important to keep in mind how important the HBAR Foundation is and how important it is to have leadership at the organization. So good insights from Rob Allen. And I think that especially when we look at something like borrowing and lending with a project like Bonzo Finance, I was on Bonzo Finance's Twitter Spaces this week. When did they do their spaces? Fridays, maybe. Yeah, I think it was Friday. I was on their spaces, and they were talking about the challenges they were overcoming with the Oracle stuff, different things like that, the JSON RPC. But they've really publicized a lot of that. And the last step that they're at is a grant from the HBAR Foundation for incentives for liquidity, similar to something that's been done for Saucer Swap or Pangolin or something like that. So it really is critical at this time for the foundation and for Hedera, anybody in the ecosystem that is responsible for providing resources to these projects to really prioritize this, because borrowing and lending is going to be critical, and it ties into other things like USDC, the need for USDC stuff, the need for transparent analytics, the needs for just better communication in general. I think Charles, the president of Hedera, did a good job summarizing that in that letter that he wrote out. When was that? Let me see here. Let's actually take a peek at that and see when that came out. Charles, where are you? Let's take a look at your letter. Where is it? It's probably way down here. Oh my God. He wrote this letter, must have been in August. Or must have been, could it have been July? Maybe it was July. Oh yeah. There it is, July 12th. So exactly 2 months ago, this letter from Charles, and this was a pretty comprehensive letter. I reread this recently just as a kind of like a refresher. I forgot I posted this. Jesus. I reread this recently. One thing that stuck out to me just kind of in a bit of a refresh was, where is this section here? Where is it? Here we are. Yeah, there was one part here. Again, it really has to be reminded for people that Hedera doesn't really, like, a lot of people go, Hedera needs to really get control of stuff and everything like that. But Hedera doesn't really have control of that kind of stuff. So there was this part here where Charles specifically said, that said, while Hedera does not and cannot control independent organizations with the ecosystem, we have every right to express when we do not agree with particular decisions or behaviors, and we may speak up more in the future. So that's one thing, rereading this, a little while ago, that kind of like stuck out to me. So it is interesting stuff. But I'm very excited about today. The reason I was excited about today, I was kind of like posting yesterday, like, I'm having Captain HBARK on the show, and I'm really looking forward to this because people have obviously been seeing HBARK all over social media, everything like that. And I'm really, really happy to have Ashe on the show to chat about this. Dude.
Yar!
Dude, get out of here. Cheers, matey. Damn,
cheers,
that's awesome.
matey.
Man, that if you want to talk about someone that's like dedicated to the ecosystem, I don't think it gets any better than this. Jeez, man. This is awesome. Holy cow. I felt so bad too because a lot of people don't know last episode, which I mean was a crazy episode with the HBAR Bowl. I was supposed to have Ashe on as well, and like the invite got messed up, so you were like chilling in like some random Google Meet or something. And I finished the show, and you're like, "I'm in the Google Meet." I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Google will do that. Yeah, they'll just attach a meeting to every single invite, and it's always so confusing. But it's good to be here now.
Hell yeah! I mean, it's been I think I've had you on the show. It's probably been years. Last time I had you on the show, I was probably still on Spaces and everything like that. But
yeah. I've been around Hedera since 2021. So I think that puts me as an OG at this point.
You are an OG. I mean, for folks unfamiliar, you're at Swirlds Labs, aka Hashgraph. And I mean, you've recently started this, HBARK project, which is crazy, the barking game. And I mean, to kick things off, like, how are you doing, man? Like, what's new in your life?
Well, doing great. My wife just had our first kid last weekend. So it's been
congratulations, dude.
Man, thank you.
The crew grows. The ship crew grows.
That's right. I've got a new poop deck to attend to. That's for sure. One little Barkaneer is always welcome on a board, but no, it's good. I'm getting about 3 hours of sleep here and 3 hours of sleep there, but here we are. Got
you. Well, you're bringing the energy, man, regardless. So I love it. Now, to kick it off, I think that I'm assuming, I mean, I was joking with you before the show, like this is the first episode I'm streaming to LinkedIn. So we probably have like a bunch of like VPs or like whatever.
This is a great one. This is a great one to have on LinkedIn today.
Yeah. It's like, who the fuck is this guy? So I wanted to, maybe we'll just kind of rewind a bit and like, what is the barking game? What inspired you to build it? Why build the barking game?
Yeah. So I have had a focus for about the past 12 to 18 months or so at Hashgraph, or previously Swirlds Labs, working on, most people know me for NFTs, right? But I've been asked to have a focus specifically for consumer engagement, loyalty, and rewards. And if that uses NFTs, then that's fine. If it doesn't, if it uses fungible tokens, that's fine too. Maybe it just uses the consensus service. But so my mind's been in this consumer engagement mindset for over a year now, for quite some time. And whenever I would speak to Web 2 teams specifically, my focus was more on the Web 2 side, trying to iterate and ideate with Web 2 teams to use Web 3 assets to try to expand their loyalty programs. A lot of you will remember the Starbucks Odyssey program. Okay, so that has since been shut down. But that was kind of the evolution of this. We wanted somebody, me, to be focused on, what are the successes and failures of that project, and how much legs does this type of project have for Web 2? And so I've spoken to a lot of Web 2 companies, and I've ideated and iterated on various ideas with them, and either that they've been a bit cautious, understandably, to introduce Web3 tokens. I mean, look, even OpenSea's being sued right now, right? And so it's still a bit risky for Web2 companies. I think they're going to get here eventually, but right now it just seems the risk reward just doesn't level out, currently for them, as far as I can tell. Right. Sure, we've had teams in our ecosystem and in other ecosystems launching NFT collections. Some of the big ones are in other ecosystems, Nike and Adidas and stuff like that. We've got the Doctor Who game with Reality Plus and others who are launching NFTs, and everybody knows Lithos. But back in January, February, March this year, I was a big supporter of the base ecosystem because they were putting retail first, right? And I thought that was a very interesting perspective for them. Since Coinbase is the retail centralized exchange, the base ecosystem was prioritizing retail first. And so it's like the two ends. If I realize that retail pays the bills, I built for the retail person here, right? But if Hedera is focused on enterprise, I wanted to keep my eye, as someone who just keeps up with Web3. I've been keeping up with Web3 for over a decade. I wanted to keep up with an ecosystem that was prioritizing the retail user. And in the long run, that was going to prioritize the enterprise user, because Coinbase is one of the biggest enterprises in all of crypto, right? So they would know more than anyone else about enterprise adoption, because they have enterprise custody products, enterprise trading products, right? Institutional enterprise. I'm using those terms interchangeably. And one of the things I saw when I joined Warpcast, right, the blockchain-based social media, was this project called DGen. And that's what the barking game was modeled after. And I saw on Warpcast how much engagement and community vibe that project DGen created. And I really liked it. And I never really participated in it too much. I bought a bag, but it wasn't like where the barking game, you just buy a bag of HBARK and then you earn bark power and you can start barking. It wasn't so straightforward on DGen, on Warpcast. And it depended on how much DGen token you owned, but then how active you were and how much engagement you were getting on Warpcast, the social media platform. So I wanted to build something like that and bring it to Twitter, which I think is a better medium for it. Just because if we want to meet the
so
user where they are.
wasn't on Twitter. It was kind of an insular kind of ecosystem, and with Barking Game, you decided to kind of expand it.
Yeah, exactly. Warpcast is its own version of like Farcaster. It's a web UI that runs on top of the decentralized social media platform Farcaster. And while they had, Farcaster has a lot of users, it's a fraction of the users that Twitter has. And so whenever I was thinking about building the barking game, I wanted to open it up to as many people as possible, so that you could bark for anybody, and hopefully that bark would get them curious about the barking game, and then curious about Hedera, and then come on over as a top of funnel type of asset, the HBARK.
Love that. So that's a really good point. And I think that you hit on the why really well. I mean, you're not just somebody who's dabbling in Web3 and stuff and just retail. Like, you do have also the enterprise background and looking at it through that enterprise lens too. So I think what I'm seeing with the HBARK stuff is very similar to some of the conversations we're having in the community of, learnings through the 6 years in Hedera, and kind of going, it's not really a choice between enterprise and retail. It's more so retail being a stepping stone to enterprise adoption. Yeah,
absolutely. You have to have both. You have to have end users. You have to have B2B and B2C in the Web3 space.
Right.
And we see enterprises like Nike, let's take an example, right? Coming over and deploying at least just an NFT mint onto a chain, but they're going to deploy it where the users are. Right. you're not going to deploy it. You're not going to get somebody like Nike. Sorry, my cat Noodles is trying to board the ship here. Maybe he smells a mouse. Let me go let him in.
Yeah. Let's the more the merrier. No, that's a great point with the Nike stuff. I always joke about Hedera, kind of. Welcome to the crew, Noodles.
All right, Noodles.
Hell yeah.
Every Barcaneer needs a good first cat mate.
Exactly. That's
who's
key.
Who's gonna chase the mice off the ship? So
that's awesome. I was just gonna say I joke about Hedera sometimes in that vein of kind of like it's felt like Hedera's gone to Enterprise and been like, hey, let's do it. And Enterprise is like, hey, you need retail. And Hedera goes, but no, we want you.
Yeah. You know, if you're just building a software only like that software stack that's just completely behind the scenes and maybe an enterprise focus will work, right? But that's assuming that enterprises are demanding, you know, just it assumes that we've reached the stage in Web3 blockchain hashgraph, you know, DLT adoption, where the use cases are so obvious that enterprises are ready to replace their databases with a distributed ledger. And we're just not there yet. And so, you know, part of the reason I wanted to build the barking game is I wanted to show my colleagues at Hashgraph and at the HBAR Foundation, like what a retail focused consumer community engagement project, how it could be simple and how it could be effective. Right. Yeah. What up, Queen Man? I'm afraid Noodles may have already eaten the parrot. We'll see. But you know, the barking game, we were in development for about 3 to 4 months, and I was able to just reverse engineer how the DGen game worked, and I was able to figure out how to pull it to Twitter. I came up with the tokenomics myself with the help of my brother. Nice. No Barcaneer works alone. And then the calculation for bark power it's actually quite simple, but since it uses a Web2 token, it doesn't have that level of transparency. Even though I'll write the equations out and I've gone step through examples, and you know I can explain it to people. This is a hybrid Web2 Web3 project, and the reason that we used a Web2 token with bark power with the Web3 token HBARK is simply for user experience. We really wanted the user experience of this thing to be as good as possible. And you know, somebody within the Mouths community reached out and they're like, "Hey, have you thought about using a Web3 token for bark power?" And while we definitely could, we would have to put so many permissions on it, and we would have to manage. We'd have to we would have to transfer that token. And then at the end of the day, you know, you if you don't use your bark power, you lose it. We'd have to burn the tokens, right? And it would just create a lot of, in my opinion, unnecessary on-chain transactions. That adds complication. It doesn't add that much cost, but adds a bunch of complication. And the end goal is not to have bark power as a Web3 asset. The end goal is to create the ability for the barking game users to surface great content and great people creating that content. And then have an incentive mechanism so that you can tip or you can bark for someone, and there's something more than just a like or a comment, right? You're actually transferring value on Twitter as a tip almost, right? As a bark that somebody can come and claim later. So it just adds a new layer of incentivization to our ecosystem.
Gotcha. And I was going to say too, you know, I wanted to ask you kind of how it works, because I'm just going to pull it up here. I was talking about this on the show earlier about, you know, the stuff with Accenture and kind of stuff Carmel here. And this is a great example, is like, hey, this is great. I want to, you know, give her some props, bark at her. So basically how it works is I've already verified with the app, but basically I go, this is awesome. You know, let's do, you know, 250 HBARK. Right. And then
yeah, so 250 before the HBARK.
Right. Okay. See, we're learning on the go here.
Yeah.
We're learning on the go here. So there you go. Boom. 250 HBARK. Now that's going to do a bunch of stuff and it's going to do everything. So maybe it might be useful, for folks kind of just checking this out for the first time. Like what's happening with that? How does that work?
Absolutely. So we subscribe to the Twitter API. And so we have a backend service that just runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we're looking for the $ HBARK and the hashtag HBARK as well. But, we like to key off the $, the cash tag HBARK. And we can search Twitter using Twitter API for just that cash tag, right? And so whenever we see that cash tag, we go and look at the tweet, and we do some regular expression parsing to parse out all the extra letters and words and emojis and images, and we try to distill it down to just number HBARK. And so now we know that it's Brandon D. barked for 250 for that user, and I can't remember that user's name, but. So now we've gotten that down to the basics, and we compare that against your bark power, right? Your bark power balance. And if you have 250 or more, then we subtract 250 from your bark power balance, and we assign 250 barks or points, if you will, to that user who you bark for. At the end of the gaming season, that user can come and claim that 250 those 250 barks, which are now turned 1-to-1 into actual Web3 HBARK tokens, and then they can hold them or they can sell them. There's going to be many gaming seasons, and the rules are the same. If you have a bag of HBARK, then you get bark power to bark and play the game. I imagine that some users will want to sell their HBARK tokens. Some users will want to keep them. What I saw in DGen on Warpcast was that after the first claim window opened, and that finally truly legitimized the entire project, that people were like, okay, this is actually real. We are going to be able to claim this HBARK 1-to-1.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's very interesting. So another question for you. So obviously I have this show. People support the show by sending HBAR to a wallet and all those different types of things. But I'm really humbled to see myself at number 6 on the HBAR on the Bark leaderboard. And basically what you're saying is that at the end of the season, this 130,000 HBARK, I can grab an HBARK tokens, and that's effectively how creators are rewarded on the platform. They go through the season, they get that support from the community, and then they get their chest at the end of their treasure.
Yeah, exactly. They get their loot at the end.
Okay, so that's a really good example. So maybe, let's get It's Brandon D up in the charts here. Let's see if we can get in the top 3. If you're watching, throw some HBARK at the show in the comments on X, and I think it's a great way to support the show. It's so much more dynamic than just having people contribute HBARK. It's actually interactive. It's fun.
And the great thing is that whenever you bark for someone, you don't need to actually send them any HBARK. You're just telling us who and how much to allocate the next this season's treasure chest to, basically, right? Gotcha. It's like whenever you bark for someone, you retain all of your HBARK tokens, Hedera HTS tokens, but you're just telling us, whenever we open up that treasure box at the end of season 1, there's going to be a whole bunch of HBARK tokens in there. By playing the game, you're just telling us how much and who to distribute those to.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. And someone, just a viewer here commented, Charles joined too, obviously referring to the president of Hedera. That was funny. It's like, hey, everyone's getting, bark pilled on, the bark.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
It's barking awesome. I know. I saw the foundation is verified as well. And
oh, really?
I know I put a poll out the other day, and I know that, some people's opinions differ from others about the foundation recently.
Sure.
But my opinion is, I think it would be great for them to start barking. It would create more relevance to our retail community on X. It would give them ability to, they already do a pretty good job of retweeting stuff and commenting on projects and stuff. But
shout out to Zepsi at the foundation. I think he's behind the handle. He does a great job.
Right on. But this now, it's like we've opened up from Twitter. Why only like, comment, and retweet when you can also bark? It's like, we added we added 33% more functionality to Twitter by introducing the barking game.
Right on. And honestly, from that standpoint, knowing how much HBARK token the foundation could buy, they should be number one on the leaderboard. I mean, when you talk, when you talk about really rewarding the community and creators and engagement, like what an effective way for the foundation to do that. That'd be crazy.
That would be so sick. I mean, obviously not financial advice, guys, make sure and read the disclaimer in the white paper. I break it all down in there. But, what I noticed in DGen over in Farcaster was whenever the market cap of DGen was low, and on base low meant like 50 million, right? I think HBARK is currently at like $250,000, right?
Right.
And so we're off by like at least one magnitude here. But whenever the market cap was low over on DGen, people were barking, oh, here's 1,000, here's 2,000, here's 3,000.
Sure.
All of a sudden, that baby shot up to $1 billion market cap, and you could just give somebody a couple barks or a couple, they called them tips, right?
Right.
A couple tips, and that was a couple bucks. And this game gets really rewarding and really fun if the market cap can support it, of course. Now that means we would need a whale like a foundation or like, I mean, how cool would it be if Hedera bought, and started playing HBARK?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the game gets a lot more rewarding, and you have a lot more power, let's say, to bark and surface and reward people. I mean, if this thing could get to a high enough market cap, Brandon, I wouldn't be surprised if your show raked in a couple $100 every show. But it's hard to do that whenever there's very minimal capital. But I'm hoping, I'm not here pitching, hey, everybody go out and buy HBARK because it's going to make the game funner. I'm just talking about like from a tokenomics and economic perspective, this is what I saw over in DGen world. And people went crazy for this thing, but they really hit it right. Base rolled out, and then DGen really hit its peak in like March of this year, which was the top of the market so far. So.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense, and it's been missing in the space. Like there's a transparency aspect to it. Like, again, people sending HBAR to the show, it's good to support, but maybe it's cumbersome. You got to open your wallet, you got to do a thing. And a project like HBARK, it's like similar to what you're talking about. It's like, for me, it's not even really about the token or anything like that. It's like, oh, here's a tool similar to someone, subscribing to my profile on X or whatever. And it's just on different rails, right? It's or a different ship, maybe we'll call it. And
there you go.
It's one of it's one of those things where it's, when you strip away kind of the meme aspect to it and kind of the cartoon characters and stuff, it it actually is like an effective rail to support creators in a transparent 100%. Way, because you can visually see on the X platform who's getting rewarded and how much, and so
who's barking for who. That's right.
Exactly. So
and anybody could go and subscribe to the Twitter API and calculate how many barks people are getting. The only caveat there is you guys don't yet know how much bark power people have, and if their bark was louder than their bite, right? Because there's nothing stopping me. If I only have 100 bark power, I could say, oh, here's 10,000 HBARK. Whenever we see that, whenever we pull that in, we're only going to attribute 100 and just discard the rest of them. Now we are building some stuff. I don't want to give too much away, but that will.
Oh, come on! It's just us and a couple hundred of our closest friends.
A couple things we've got cooking is, if you keep up with the barking game Twitter, then you'll know that our #1 requested feature is another leaderboard, but for barks given, right? So there's some very active players of the barking game that they don't create a whole lot of content to get barked for, but they do a lot of barking. They love the project, and they've got a lot of HBARK. They earn a ton of bark power every day, and they do a lot of barking. And so I want to recognize those people, because they are just as important as the people who are receiving the barks, right?
Right.
The other thing I'm trying to build right now is a little calculator that anybody can use. I want to put it on our website, that you can go and put someone's Twitter account handle, someone's Twitter handle in, and it will actually tell you how much bark power they received today, how much they've spent, how much they have remaining. So you
Right.
can go see whenever somebody barks for you, you can go see if they actually have the bark power to back up that bark. Say that 10 times fast.
But no, gotcha. That makes sense. And I mean, what we're touching on here as well is like, this is a new project. It's getting started. There are obstacles and challenges and pitfalls to navigate. There's more to come. I think one of the big conversations I've seen about the barking game right now is just the concept of like gaming the system and stuff. It's been suspected that maybe there's accounts out there or something that are using Twitter bots and this and that to kind of game the system and all these different types of things.
Yeah,
I can't see something like that not happening for for a platform.
I mean,
like
this is Web3.
Exactly right. So on that front, like when we're talking about real dollars and cents being thrown into the pot for a game like this, and someone taking advantage of it, like as a builder, like how do you navigate that? Like obviously other similar projects have had to deal with it. How are you kind of navigating it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it is the hot question of the day. Within the barking
you're on
game
the Hashgraph
ecosystem.
Enthusiast show.
Yeah, so we anticipated bark farming, right? And I learned this. Thankfully, I got to learn about this with DGen, and DGen banned a lot of people who were suspected of farming DGen tips. We have not gone there yet, but if you read our white paper and read our terms of service, we do have sections in there that say if you're suspected of bark farming. And of course, it's not going to be a first time suspicion, but we do have the ability to ban your account. We can't do anything with your HBARK tokens, of course, that you have in your Hedera wallet because they're completely permissionless. There's no keys on that token ID at all. But since Bark Power is a Web2 token, we could take measures if we wanted to. Now, we have not. But what have we done? Well, so let's talk about what is bark farming? Well, we have instituted where when we scrape for barks, you can't bark for yourself. We just throw that away, right? If we see that the barker and the receiver are the same, we just throw that away. What you can do, and what it looks like somebody may be doing, I want to walk a fine line here, right? Because this person is playing by the current rules of the game, is you can bark for the same account every single day if you want to. And you can give them all of your bark if you want to. This is no different than, let's say let's say that Brandon really loves HBAR Bull, right? And he buys a big bag of HBARK and he wants to reward the HBAR Bull every single day because he thinks he's undervalued and he wants to keep him in our community, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
What would we have a problem if Brandon bought a huge bag, millions and millions of HBARK that got him just tons of bark power every day and bark for Brandon? I bark
every day,
every single day, right? We'd probably be okay with that, right? Because the person who buys the HBARK does buy the right to bark for whomever they want to. Yeah. And so I think it's important that we have our eye on this and we anticipated this, but being number one on our leaderboard just means that either you figured out how to play the game or that you are getting a lot of support from the community. But we're only in our 4th week right now, right? And we have multiple seasons. I mean, the barking game is going to go on for quite some time. And you can even see that we have adjusted the LP rewards, which we're giving 3x bark power. We have still are giving 3x bark power, but we have adjusted the HODL rewards now to try to redirect some of that bark power back into the hands of the passive holder, somebody who doesn't know or feel comfortable LP.
It's fine tuning things as the project goes along. Yeah.
It's like a real video game where you have to send out patches to update and tweak your economy, right?
Because like some weapons are imbalanced or this and that,
Yep, that's exactly right. Yeah. So that's what we've done. There's other ideas that we have around possibly quadratic barking, where if you get barks from a lot of accounts, it counts for more than if you get just one bark from one big account.
Gotcha.
But we're not going to change any big rules of the barking game within a season. I really do want you to sign into a season of the barking game and know what you're going to get for the most part. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so I think that's just the challenge with Web3. Like, What we're talking about is rewarding creators, is community members being able to reward creators and transfer value to them. And in Web 2, it's you put your credit card into X and then you subscribe to someone's profile and there you go. But the beauty of Web 3, it's just decentralized and it creates new opportunities, like we were talking about how easy this is. But then you have new challenges where it's like, is this actual real people or what's going on? So it's good to know that kind of like you have experience dealing with stuff like this. You have a plan for it. And it's just, I think it's just the nature of a new project going into uncharted, into new, I got to start using better analogies, into new seas. We're going into new seas.
That's right.
Now, right?
You know, we're trying to find the calm seas.
Uncharted waters.
And there you go. Uncharted waters. Right. Yeah. But I like that you can look at it as like a subscription. If somebody buys a bag of HBARK and they want to use that to subscribe to someone, then that's effectively what they're doing. They're spending their bark power to reward that creator every day. And look, we may think that creator deserves that much bark power, and we may not think that creator deserves that much bark power. But the way to kind of level that and put your people up at the top of the leaderboard, right, is you got to play the game. And you got to either LP, you got to hodl HBARK, and that's going to give you the bark power, which gives you the influence, right, and a bigger share of the influence. But this is the game as it is right now. And you know, a lot of people have been DMing me about this, as you can imagine, and I'm iterating through ideas with a whole bunch of people. But if anyone listening, and including you, Brandon, if you have any ideas on how can we make the barking game more fair, right, to reward the people who are creating the content, who are doing the stuff, we're all ears.
Love it. And then so one of the last questions I want to ask you is kind of, so when we talk about this game and kind of how far it's come and just the feedback from the community, obviously, you know, you have a bigger vision for this, probably a lot of it you can't share, but what's the goal of this project? Is it a part of something bigger, you know, those kinds I'm curious to know kind of where you see this going and kind of what your plans are for it.
Yeah, where I would really like to see this is using the barking game as a jumping off point for both Web 2 and Web 3 companies. I'd like to see partnerships come in. You know, we're just starting to scratch the surface on how people can utilize the barking game to create community engagement and give rewards, right?
Yeah.
We got to think of this as just another feature of X or of Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe, bark, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, why would you just like when you could bark, right? Barking is the new like. You know, and this came to me because whenever in my time at NFTs at Hedera, it was one of the phrases that I like to use was the NFT mint is the quantifiable social media like. Right. It's one thing to go and just like someone's comment. And I saw this on Warpcast as well. It's one thing to go and just like someone's comment. I mean, okay, cool. I mean, that's great. It's going to tell the algorithm that this post is a little bit more important and people are liking it and they're engaging with it. But if you mint someone's NFT, right, you're objectively caring about that more because you're paying that on-chain transaction and you're associating yourself with that NFT, with that creator. And then you have that NFT in your account so that creator has some sort of means to get in touch with you or at least identify you in the future, right? This is marketing. Now, I'm an engineer, right? I'm an engineer. I'm not a marketer. But with Barks, we want to do the same thing. And I guess I'll spill just a little bit of alpha here. Once we get the Who's Barking leaderboard built, all right, that's our current goal. What I really want to do is to create a barking game social graph. Because right now, one of the big missing parts of the barking game is knowing who has barked for me, specifically for me, and what posts, what tweets have they barked for, how much have they barked, etc. Because let's say if I'm a brand or I'm a content creator, it's one thing to know how much barks just I've gotten from everyone. But I also want to see who's loyal so that I can reward them in the future, right? If I see that, 32% of all of my barks are coming from this account, that's a great person in my ecosystem. That's a great listener of my show. That's someone who consumes my content or engages with me. And I want to know that. And I want to know, just like in the Web 2 world, where you want to know what your click-through rates are and stuff like this. I want to know, if I put a post up, how many barks did this post get, right? Okay, my audience likes that type of content. And so that's the bigger picture of this.
Right. Insights. It's similar. Yeah, it's similar to like Twitter analytics, YouTube analytics. It helps a creator not only get rewarded for what they're doing, but have analytics based off of metrics that are backed by like humans. Like that's another aspect that's cool about HBARK, is it's not this kind of mindless subscription or automated type thing. It literally takes someone their own action and time to bark at you. So those metrics and stuff might hold a little more weight when it comes to a creator figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
It's just a new feedback mechanism, right?
Yeah.
It's a new feedback mechanism, and it does extend the functionality of Twitter, because now I'm building a list, right? Just like you can have a free to mint NFT collection and you can see who claims that, and you can build a list that way. And that's where we started. If you remember, back in like April and May, right? That's where the barking game started. I created the Barcaneers NFT, and my wife created the Scallywag Squawkers, and we just gave those away for free to try to build some momentum and some engagement. The next step, I think, is actual like value transfer, which what barks do. So it's like like, comment, subscribe, bark.
And what you're saying is at the end of this first season, that's when people might have the light bulb moment of like, oh, wow, a bunch of value is just distributed. This is real. The feedback loop will be complete at that point.
Yeah, the entire loop will be complete at that point. And, I mean, fingers crossed, let's hope for a bullish unlock, because, after each season, we do introduce more supply.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is a chance that people will find that and they'll just cash it out because they don't care. Right. But I think what I saw in DGen for a couple seasons was that once people saw like, okay, this is actually legit and we are going to get paid out one-to-one HBARK, it really it solidified the project.
Yeah. And that same argument could be made for a project like Karate, right? It's like, oh, you got people betting on their fighters and then they get a bunch of tokens. Nobody loses any tokens. You have a bunch more in supply. They've been okay. So I think that this dynamic kind of works. That like once the feedback loop is completed and folks have a positive experience, I don't think their first thought's going to be like, well, I'm out now. It's like hopefully it's like, hey, this is cool. Season 2.
And this works. And I got paid out, and like, let's go. What's season 2 going to have? Yeah.
Right. I dig it. And when does season 1 end? What's the date?
Season 1's going to end at the end of September. So we got a couple more weeks.
Gotcha.
Yeah. We are midway through our 4th week of since launch and through season 1 right now. So
season is 2 months or whatever.
Well, we define the season length, and I define the season length, and I define how much HBARK is available in that season.
Gotcha.
So I think season 1 had max 15 million HBARK available in it, and I can use that number to derive how much bark power is available each day. Because remember, you have, let's say you have 15 million HBARK in season 1. Divide that by the number of days in season 1. That's how many HBARK tokens can be allocated each day.
Right.
All right. Since 1 HBARK equals 1 bark power, that also means how much bark power is available each day to distribute. Right. Okay. So we can't give more than, so when we're giving out bark power, it's a set amount of bark power every day distributed amongst all the players of the game.
Gotcha.
So if you in order to increase your influence and decrease someone else's influence, you will buy more HBARK, right?
Gotcha.
Because now you're telling our system like, hey, I'm committed to this. I'm putting my capital in this project, and I want to have more influence.
Okay, so it's not just the amount, the number, it's the ratio, the how big is your slice of the pie for the season. Gotcha.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. How big is your slice of pie for the day in the season? Because remember, we recalculate that slice of the pie every single day. And that's why you get a refill every day, because we have to stay up to date. So we own a 24-hour timer.
Gotcha. Okay. Last thing I wanted to bring up, just a subject, just because I'm really interested in just kind of touching on it with you is, I think it's, an understatement to say that the last few months in the ecosystem have been energetic
to say the least.
Yeah. And of course, we've got retail pays the bills. We've got all sorts of different conversations around leadership and marketing. I was, it was like weeks ago, I was like outside in front of my house screaming into my phone about like marketing is bad, and so it's like all of that. I mean, we don't really have to really, touch on it too much because we both kind of know exactly what, I think everyone knows exactly what we're talking about. But in regards to that kind of stuff, like where's your head at with things when we look at, the next month's year of Hedera, where we're at, what we've learned, some of that controversy.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off with a small plug. I feel like I've created a marketer's dream tool here, right? Now that said, I have not had anyone from the Hashgraph, from Hedera, or from the foundation reach out to me and ask how to get started. I hear there's people interested, but
really,
this is available. Yeah, I know. I think this is like the best marketing
Guys,
tool in all of Hedera right now.
One sec. Now that I'm streaming to LinkedIn, for God's sake, if anyone from these organizations is watching the show on the godforsaken platform LinkedIn, please start using this thing. We've got like a great engagement marketing type thing. If you shut me up, start using this thing for God's sake. But anyways,
I mean, I've had good feedback from some people in the marketing teams, but and maybe they're slower to move. Thankfully, I built this in my spare time, and I've got some co-founders that did a lot of the development work for me. But the great thing is that we get to use this as a marketing tool, and maybe the organizations will come over in due time. But I think, just coming back to your question, I think that if I was, I'm an engineer, I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm a builder. I'm not a marketer. I just happen to know a little bit about marketing because it's been required for me to try to create success for my projects, right? But I would really take a step back, and I don't have any insights on our marketing team. I don't even talk to that team from any of our organizations, right? Just very sparingly. Just my time in Web3. I come from the old school of crypto. I can remember when it was really only Tether and Litecoin other than Bitcoin, right? This is before the Ethereum mainnet launch. And during my days, I was very active. I was the It's Brandon D of the EOS ecosystem. I had EOS radio, right? I created shows and content every week. And one of the ideas there was, enterprise is right around the corner. Enterprise is right around the corner. And when I joined Block One, the creators of EOS, basically, the Hashgraph of the EOS world, if you will, we maintained the layer one. We had an entire department that was focused on enterprise solutions, right? With private EOS blockchains, not too different than the private Hashgraphs that we're currently talking about.
Gotcha.
But enterprises move very slowly. And we were way too early in 2019, 2020 during my tenure at Block One. And you have to look at where are the users right now. And in our heads, if we want to focus on, we can get Web 2 companies over here and we can onboard their entire user base. If that's working, then let's keep on that. If it's not working as well as we want, we need to pivot our focus a bit, not abandon, but expand. And we need to expand to where are the users, where is the excitement? Because I think one thing, since I've been around for so long, I have my perspective is not just Hedera, right? And
sure. Yeah.
It's like what I want is, and I think what a brand wants is try to get as many ambassadors as you can.
Yes.
And as we've seen with the governing council, they are not ambassadors of Hedera for the most part. They're not going around every day posting the greatness of Hedera, right? And talking about all the exciting things that are going on chain and that are happening in our ecosystem. Who is doing that? Well, retail is, right? Yeah. Retail's doing that. The end user's doing that. And so if you want to have this basically free army of ambassadors, think the Link Marines, right? Back in the 2021 cycle of
Right,
Chain
sure.
Link, right? If you want that just relentless, aggressive type of Hedera's the best, look at all the amazing things we're doing, that's going to come from the retail space and only the retail space.
Yeah.
That's not going to come from IBM, right?
Sure.
I think IBM can do some great things on chain. All right. I haven't seen a whole lot yet, but they have the resources, they have the team, they have the technology, they've got the talent. But for now, it's like, go where your users are. And which is exactly why I built the barking game on Twitter, right? I didn't go and build it on Warpcast because the Hedera user is not on Warpcast. The base user is on Warpcast.
Gotcha.
But go where the energy is and harness that energy where and how you can.
And I guess kind of where people's heads are at, because I think you and I, like, definitely, I think a lot of people in this community are on the same page in regards to like what challenges the ecosystem faces, mistakes that have been made, pathways forward. I think when we really ingest that, it paints an optimistic picture of like, hey, Hedera has a chance to really try a new approach to problems that a lot of other networks have faced and failed at. And so there's a lot of learnings there. But something I wanted to touch on here was like, when we look at the future for Hedera and kind of what these approaches are, from your perspective, like, do you agree with kind of what people are talking about? Like, we need to enhance native staking. We need to, to your point with the governing council, like, we need to minimize how important the governing council is. We need to, break out of our silos. We need to invest more in native projects versus bringing people from the outside in, like those kind of conversations that are happening. Do you mostly agree with that kind of stuff, or do you kind of have some opinions that might veer off a little bit from the general consensus?
I don't want to pretend that I create strategy. I'm not in a strategic role at Hedera. Yeah. I'm in quite a small role on the developer advocacy and product team. I don't have a fund. I don't have any money to support things. I built the barking game, just in my free time on my own.
Yeah, I'm more asking to the community member, Captain HBARK.
Oh, yeah. I think I'll argue it from two sides. The first side is, one theory is there's a whole lot of things that Hedera doesn't have that could be prescribed to creating success for other ecosystems. Things like lending protocols, things like oracles and stuff like that, right? These are things that you need if you're going to have a healthy and vibrant decentralized economy, right? And Hedera's getting those, but it's taken quite some time, right? And so I think if I was in a strategic position at Hedera, I would really want to step back and, from first principles, like, think about what is our identity and who are we trying to be an ecosystem for? Because one of the things I identified very early in Hedera is a lack of, when I started in 2021, and there was essentially a lack of any smart contracts.
Sure.
Right. Who needs a smart contract? Well, a decentralized community, a decentralized economy that don't know each other needs smart contracts, because it can remove and lessen trust in the system. Hedera wasn't built that way. Hedera was built utilizing not smart contracts, but back-end code to manage tokens and stuff like that,
right,
which inherently means there is more trust in the system, right? And so Hedera was not created to be, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, doesn't represent any opinions of Hashgraph, wasn't created to truly be a decentralized, trustless ecosystem, because you have to trust builders running code on their own back ends that they have full permission over, right?
Right.
You guys have to trust that I am calculating the BARKs correctly, right?
Right.
But once that HBARK token is in your wallet, I don't have any permission on it, right? But it's not like now with the EVM, this whole changes. But we're playing such catch up in the true trustless, decentralized economy that Hedera, in my opinion, and Charles really need to think about like what is our current position as a decentralized ecosystem, as a decentralized economy. I want to use the word economy here, right? And who are the leaders, and why are they leaders? Specifically based in Solana, in my opinion. And what is our likelihood of being able to compete with them? Is there still a window of opportunity, which I think there is. I still think crypto is very young. And what is it going to take to build that type of decentralized trustless ecosystem, right? And if they don't think that there's an opportunity, then this enterprise focus should be the focus, because you can't forever spend HBARs to try to compete in everything. I've thought for some time that Hedera is in a bit of an identity crisis. And maybe crisis is a bit too strong here, but in an opportunity to re-identify, because you can't be everything for everyone, right? Look at Solana. They were specifically tailored to the degenerate retail user, and they give a strong focus on good UX and beautiful UIs, right? And that's going to attract that type of user, right? Base is doing something similar, but of course with the backing of the juggernaut Coinbase. If Hedera is going to continue to try to gain a capture a larger slice of that pie, either from the retail side or from the institution side, the enterprise side, I don't know what that plan is, right? And I don't know where that's weighted. Is this 90% institution or enterprise and 10% retail? Is it 99-1? Is it 50-50?
Right.
I'm not in that strategic role. I have no influence over our marketing strategy or anything. But what I do have influence over is building tools that I think move us in the right direction, right? And that's why I built the barking game. So.
I love that. Yeah, it's basically show don't tell. So
yeah, show don't tell.
Yeah, I love that.
Exactly.
And I think you raise a good point. It's like, on one hand, you could argue that Hedera has a lot of missing pieces that it needs, but Hedera is also the missing piece for a lot of other networks, right? It's
Absolutely.
talked about quite a few times, maybe Solana needs more accurate time tracking. It's like, boom, HCS, plug your app in. So Hedera can return. It's a combination of, like you're saying, like thinking forward, working through what this new identity, what the future looks like, but also kind of returning to the past and go, well, the inventor Lehman Baird framed it as a trust layer of the internet. So we've learned that there's a lot of networks out there that are very powerful and successful that are going to start to hit those bumps when it comes to trust. And can Hedera be a trust layer for Web3 networks as well, and expand outwards? Like, it's not just about what exciting products, whether it be in the form of bridges or dexes or borrowing or whatever it is, oracles or whatever. Not only what impressive products can we import into our ecosystem, but what impressive products and companies can we incubate inside of our ecosystem and export outwards to other ecosystems,
Absolutely. And just because another ecosystem has 5 different Oracle solutions doesn't mean that Hedera needs 5 different Oracle solutions. Right. We need to realize where we are in the whole scheme of things and where we have the best opportunity to win. Yeah, the best opportunity to win, because, look, I see the tweets that talk about, oh, Hedera has increased the supply of circulating HBAR by this much and this much, right? I see those tweets, and yeah, I mean, it's a real thing, right? But at some point, you really have to figure out, like, who really are we, and how much is it EVM based? How much is it HTS based? How much of it is HCS based? Right. And like, where are our strengths and where can we compete the best? Where's our edge? Right. Like my brother's a trader, and I hear him talk about like what his edge is. Like, I don't have an edge in investing. I have an edge in building. So that's why I like to build things. Right. But don't be where your edge isn't unless you're willing to put an enormous amount of capital and energy to create an edge in that space. Yeah. Gotcha. And I don't have the solutions right now. I've got some ideas. I probably shouldn't share any of those ideas on the show here, but yeah, I've put blood, sweat, and tears into Hedera since 2021. The NFT SDK and all I know the NFTs aren't all the rage right now, but NFTs are a fundamental asset of the digital world, right?
Yeah.
They're a pillar of
They're
property.
not just monkey JPEGs anymore.
Yeah, they are a pillar of property in the digital world. And that's why I did earlier in Q1 this year, I released NFT toolkit.app and the NFT SDK. And, I know MITBAR.xyz is down right now. We're waiting on grant funding to come through to get
Gotcha.
MITBAR back up. But yeah, I really, since I don't have a whole lot of influence over, I'm not a bigwig, right? I'm not. Yeah, okay.
You got a big hat.
Yeah, I got a big hat, but I don't have a big wig. I mean, look, I'm almost going bald here, so I don't have a big wig, that's for sure. But what I can do is what I know best, and that's build for the end user and try to build something that's fun, simple, and gets used. And I hope that that's what the Barking game has done for our community. And I have seen, I'm not going to take credit for this, but I have seen since the Barking game launched, the vibes have gotten a lot better. It's my goal was to create a positive feedback loop for our ecosystem.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to argue that the Barking game hasn't had a positive vibe impact. I've been feeling that too. And just maybe kind of touching on what you mentioned there as well. The theme that I get, the sentiment I get from people is it's not just about how much stuff do we have in the ecosystem, how much tooling do we have? It's what's the full picture? Is it integrated? Is it easy for someone to come in and just move through the ecosystem? Does it matter if we have 5 bridges or 1? It's like, how do things interact with each other? Is this ecosystem greater than the sum of its parts? And that's the kind of secret sauce I think that Solana figured out, a few other ecosystems figured out and saw success from. And so I agree that's a good strategy for Hedera right now. Is maybe it's no longer the time to really start throwing stuff at the wall and go, well, we're 6 years into this experiment and we've got a ton of dynamite projects and startups that have formed inside of this ecosystem. How can we export those outwards? How can we utilize those? Yeah,
it's like, do you want to have a shotgun approach or do you want to have more of a rifle approach? How precise do you want to be? Like, if you're really focused and really have strong conviction on what you want to fund and where you want to go, like the sniper approach is better. If you're not so sure, then the shotgun approach is better because it's more of a spray and let's see what's successful. Again, I'm more on the technical side of things. I get brought in to analyze, architecture and tokenomics and stuff like that. But I'm sure it's a difficult role.
I think as someone building this network, using the tools in this network, being in the community, I think it really gives you an authority on these topics. I mean, sure, you can have a marketing background or whatever that is. But what it really comes down to is like, do you understand the community? And you do. So I think that your thoughts on that is great. The community had a couple questions. One was from CoinMan. He's like, can HBARK go multi-platform in the future?
Yeah, it could. I think any platform where we can search for the hashtag, we could go multi-platform. So with YouTube, it would be difficult because we need to have one place that we can go and look for all the barks. Yeah. Gotcha.
Also, too, kind of random, Christian Hasker, also from previously Swirlds Labs. How much funding is needed for MintBar?
That's a great question.
Christian, write the check to P.O. Box.
P.O. Box SS Captain Jack. I actually don't know. It's a good question. We have a firewall between the foundation and Swirlds Hashgraph, where I don't know what the numbers are for anything. I just know that it needs funding.
Yeah, let's see if we can get it funding. And then also this is an last one from Paul. This was interesting. What's the definition of retail? I think there is some confusion especially in the Hedera ecosystem around like, what is retail? Like, is it just crazy degen people? Could you put a startup under the retail umbrella? Like, how would you define that?
Yeah, for me, retail is end user. So
Gotcha.
an end user, anybody who is opening up their wallet and doing stuff on chain.
Gotcha. The C side of B2C. It's like if
Yeah,
it's,
the C side of B2C. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's a great way to define it. Well, Captain Jack HBARK, it's been an awesome conversation. I wanted to give you the final word and see if you had anything else to plug, or kind of how people can get involved with the game and everything like that.
Just follow us on Twitter at The Barking Game. Check out our website, hbark.club. And I think thebarkinggame.com now works. I was able to acquire that one. But if you want to play the game, just know that there may be people farming and stuff like this. We're keeping our eye on things. But the goal of the game, if you're aligned with what our goal is, which is to reward good actions, community engagement, people doing amazing things, we can do this together, right? We don't need $1 million budgets. We don't need million HBAR strategies, right? We can do this just with the HBARK token. You can bark for anybody you want to, for any reason you want to right now, inside the Hedera community or out. Reward our own and try to pull in other people. And that's really the power of the barking game.
Dig it. Yeah, it'd be crazy to see some people barking at each other on LinkedIn. That'd be like a wild,
somebody take a look on LinkedIn if you can search by hashtag and send me a message. On Twitter, because again, any platform where we can search by hashtag and just get a list of all here. Actually, let me send, before we go here, Brandon, let me send the chat a link so that you can see. Oh, that's just in the studio.
No worries. I'll pull this up.
Yeah, this is basically where we search, where we fetch using the Twitter API to get all the barks.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. Gotcha.
So you can just see every single person barking, and you always want to click on latest there. But these are all the people barking right now. So every 5 minutes, our back end goes out and just pulls by timestamp, just pulls all of these barks, and then we process them in our back end, and then 5 more minutes, we go back out and we know what timestamp we left off at, and we go and we fetch all the barks again, and bang, bang.
Someone gave me 88 quintillion HBARK.
Yeah. So. I'm not, seeing that's a multiple times more than HBARK exists, I'm not sure that you're going to get all those, but hey, you never know.
In any minute. Right on. Well, Ash, I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate you stopping by, and congrats on the new baby and everything. It's so exciting, man. Really a pleasure to have you.
Lesson learned, don't launch a new product the week before your wife is going to give birth to your first child.
You're launching a project on hard mode.
Yeah, it's truly on hard mode.
Right on. Well, take care, man.
All
really
right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'll see everyone barking on Twitter.
Hell yeah. Cheers. Right on. Well, I mean, great stuff from Ash. Like really, really, really great to have that guy on the show. It's been too long. And yeah, I mean, whatever you think of it, right? It's a meme dog cartoon, degen NFT thing or whatever. At the end of the day, as you can tell, I get excited about it as a creator because, I don't get paid to do this show. It takes me, a lot of time to do it. I spend a lot of my own money on it. But it's possible because people send HBAR, right, to a wallet 0.0.1725506, and they send HBAR and I sell it. And I can buy stuff for the show, like the microphone and the setup and the StreamYard subscription and like all that kind of stuff. So it makes it possible. But I get excited about something like HBARK because it's just a new flavor. It's a more engaging way to do it. It's easier. So I dig it. So I think that's why it's important, and sure, again, it's a meme, it's degen, it's this, it's that. It's driving value on the network. People are creators that are putting a lot of hard work in spreading the good word about HBAR are going to make some money. It's really, really hard to find something wrong with that, to be honest. I wanted now to flip and just kind of end the show on just a topic. I mean, the episode today is what's behind closed doors. And I mean, we talked about a few things around that topic with Ash. I mean, great insights being, from Swirlds Labs, aka Hashgraph, and just building on this network and some of the sentiment he has on things I think are really important to take in. But From the other side of things, I think why, I always give the show a title that I just kind of come up with, a couple days before, just randomly. But I was feeling this. I was feeling this theme of behind closed doors because last episode I called The Winds of Change. I had the HBAR bull on. We were talking about that feeling of something's changing, and whether it's for the better or the worse, it's changing, right? I think we can feel it as an ecosystem. And what was on my mind this week was, well, the change is obviously happening behind closed doors, unfortunately in Hedera, and maybe the wind that we're feeling is blowing from under the door. Who knows? But we've got our ear pressed to the door. We're trying to figure out what's going on. Obviously, a lot of this change is going to emanate from the governing council, from leadership, all these different types of things. A lot of that's detailed in Charles, the president of Hedera, his letter that we took a look at earlier in the show. And so that's kind of what's on my mind. I think it's what's on a lot of people's mind is what's going on behind closed doors. And, I was reflecting on that, and we do have some clues, like whether we've talked about it on the show before, whether there's some new things from this week. There's some things that bubble to the surface that I just wanted to, highlight and different things like that. I brought up the HBAR bull. I would say everybody go check out his most recent episode from last Friday. Our interview that we did was like an hour, 15 minutes or something, long interview. He did a great job of chopping up the interview and doing some highlights. So at the end of his episode, he has some highlights of that. So go check that out. But the other thing too, from that episode, we watched the clip of Rob Allen earlier in the show as well, talking about the HBAR Foundation. What does the future of leadership look like? All those different types of things, problems and opportunities. But in relation to last week's episode as well, talking about some signals, I posted this clip. It's always weird to see myself in the show. The real me is down here, but there I am up there. This was a clip of the HBAR bull and I chatting on, I asked him, what would you say to somebody that wants to leave the ecosystem? And he shares some thoughts on it, which I think were really, really great. And I was kind of like, I didn't know what to make of this, but Charles Atkins, the president of Hedera, this is the top dog over there. He leaves a very cool GIF. They're right, And what this kind of leads me to believe is I think a lot of what the ecosystem is talking about, as controversial as it is at times, I think the topics surrounding leadership, problems, and opportunities, such as marketing and this and that, I think are really in line with leadership, like clearly with, top dog, Charles, right? And many others that, have interacted with content similar to mine. And so it was a little surprising to me to see that, to be honest. But it definitely gives you a signal of what could be happening behind closed doors. And the signal that it gives me is that maybe, it's a little closer to what we think it might be than not. I just saw someone called in. Give me like 10 minutes. And give me 10 minutes. Also too, just on that, there definitely were some other thoughts when we look at what happened earlier this week with Atma.io. As we know, of course, as many of us know, the Atma.io use case is subsidized, right? The HBAR Foundation will send HBAR to a payer account. That payer account will be used for processing the 1,500 transactions a second, right? And the thing there is when that account runs out, the transactions stop, right? Which isn't, like, from an optics standpoint, isn't a great look for the network. And so it's also too, like, why does that happen? Why isn't it automated? What's that about? So there's also those types of questions floating around in regards to that. Also too, there was a great article written by Brady at Bonzo Finance, also previously Swirls Labs, and he's writing about the need for clear vision and metrics by Hedera. So the need for kind of like what Ashe was talking about earlier on the show is getting through this identity crisis and figuring out what the drive is, what the purpose is, what the vision is. And then what Brady kind of adds to this is the need for transparent metrics and analytics. So he lists here network fees and revenue, DeFi token value locked, TVL, decentralized exchange trading volume, stable coin liquidity, real world asset market capitalization, NFT trading volume, native staking and liquid staking rates. So like what is going on the network and how do we measure that? Right now it's only possible to see transactions per second. And now with HederaRevenue.com, seeing revenue of the network. And there are some other dashboards that can provide some more information, but definitely we need more transparency like that. And, you know, I would definitely encourage people to read this article, but there was one part in it where he hit on the retail pays the bills stuff that I think was kind of, yeah. So this, I'll just read you kind of this one part here. So Brady writes, currently the most visible measure of progress we've seen from Hedera is celebration of cumulative transaction milestones. Recently, we just saw Hedera pass 68 billion, social media banners for every 10 billion transactions, etc. While impressive on the surface, the reality is this: most of these transactions come from a single subsidized application, right, at my.io. The vast majority of sustainable revenue is generated by retail-focused applications. This explains the popular phrase, retail pays the bills. The broader market overwhelmingly understands that this cumulative transaction metric in isolation doesn't truly reflect the network ecosystem health or adoption. So really kind of speaking to a lot of stuff we've talked about on the show and conversations we've seen in the ecosystem. I think that this article in particular does one of the best jobs at kind of really wrapping up all of that info and kind of insight into kind of something a little clearer. So I'd encourage people to check that out. Also, there was a response to that article on Reddit. So this was posted to Reddit, this article, and user Rob Paulson responded with, I think it's important to read this because this paints the picture from the other side. Like why might people not want something like this? Even though I strongly disagree with that sentiment, I think we do need those types of things. This is a way to kind of see what that other side of the argument could be. Brady responds, rebuttaling those different points. And it was interesting to see an edit from this user, Rob Paulson, does, tons of content on the Hedera subreddit, says, after talking with Brady, you can see the thread below. I think I now get what's behind this call for a change in metrics, and it's not what it seemed to me at first. He identified a few specific key metrics where Hedera is lagging and how, because the associated transactions are smart contract heavy, expensive transactions, would be a significant source of revenue if improved. He cited real world asset on-chain value and increasing USDC liquidity as two examples, two things he doesn't believe Hedera understands or is focused on. So it seems like he has a concrete plan to increase revenue for Hedera, and the change in metric idea is to get them to simply redirect their attention to these neglected sources of revenue. That's actually pretty brilliant. But I do have to say, it's kind of a crucial thing to understand for the point of this article to really hit. And it's that last piece here that I think is really important. There's so many in the HBAR ecosystem that maybe this way of thinking, this line of thinking, these concepts are, again, uncharted waters. And I think once people understand the pathway forward and kind of see the gaps, one thing this ecosystem has going for it is like, it's super, super smart. So it can grab up those concepts really, really easily. And he brought up USDC. If people check out this website, usdc.cool, it shows how much USDC is available on different networks. Obviously, Ethereum at number one with 26 billion. You've got other networks like Solana with 2 billion. You go down, you've got maybe Polkadot with 29 billion. And then we've got Hedera with 9.4 billion. So 9.4 million. Sorry, these are millions, not billions. Only Solana, Base, Ethereum, Arbitrum have billions. These are all millions. So Hedera's got 9.4 million. And That's alarming, right? There is USDC minted on Hedera that's native to Hedera USDC. There's not a lot of that, obviously. And what that means is it's not available on centralized exchanges. We saw during the hackathon, right? Milan's Nomad device. We talked about the news regarding Dropp, these point of sale products where you can use USDC, and USDC is obviously the most likely coin to be used to do these kind of transactions. You can't buy the Hedera stuff. You can't get it. And so there's a big problem there. So that's another kind of behind closed doors. What is going on to kind of, address that? One other thing that was interesting is this was shared on Reddit as well. This is from Pluto, CTO of HashPack. Quote, Charles Atkins has been doing tons of stuff. So this was a screenshot from a Discord. Pluto, the CTO of HashPack, says, Charles has been doing tons of stuff for what it's worth. Other user says, I agree. Pluto says, he popped into the Foundry call a few weeks ago and just went crazy saying stuff that was going on. The mood of the call instantly turned bullish. So again, I think about what could be happening behind closed doors. And clearly, there's something, Brady commenting here, and Brady, I mean, if you're around, feel free to pop in. Anyone can call into the show. Hashgraph.news/call, hashgraph.news/call. But Brady leaves a comment here. Treating the network success as pure transaction counts as the primary stream of revenue is not the right way. We must approach it from the lens of Hedera being interoperable with the rest of the industry, assets, core ecosystem integrations, in order to amplify the network's effects to be able to be successful in this industry. Put really well. That's kind of the way it is. And we do have calling in an expert on the topic, Gerbert the Grelf. Great to see you. What's going on? What's new?
Well, I was tuning in to the show as I do very regularly, listener, and I just wanted to make sure that I was here to make your show even longer.
Okay, great, thank you.
It's been going on a long time, and I'm thinking we should make this even longer.
Well, I mean, what do we want to talk about?
Also, I want to talk about the fact that, do you remember a few months ago when I came on here and we had a very frank discussion about good old retail and stuff, and
yeah, it's
if we got Rob Paulson, probably the most famous character from the Hedera subreddit, saying, hey, maybe someone's making a good point here. Think of the amount of progress we've made. Like, a lot of people didn't really understand what retail was. And a lot of people really didn't understand how important, the equivalent shareholders of the stock of Hedera are.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I mean, for folks unfamiliar with, Rob Paulson, I mean, a lot of folks, criticize Rob Paulson because he's very much like an old school HBARbarian, sometimes can be seen as like anti-degen or whatever it might be. But I mean, long time in the ecosystem, smart guy. And you're right, Gerbert. It's like when you have those early Hedera purists starting to go, hey, like there's some more interesting stuff to uncover here. There's some new perspectives. 6 years into this experiment, we've learned a lot, and there's some new problems to solve that can be exciting. That's a great point and a great signal that these types of conversations we're having in this ecosystem are, having an impact most likely.
Right, and you can also extrapolate that to Hedera. I'm sure a lot of people who work at Hashgraph, Hedera, all the different thingies that are totally separate, Gary Gensler, don't even worry about it. All those separate companies, very separate companies, I'm sure they had a lot of those same types of people kind of repeating the same rhetoric that we've heard for a long time. Oh, we're different. We're like Apple. We're just going to explode one day. We're so cool and our technology's so great. It'll just, pay the bills for us. It's a long-term hold. But there's no reason, if our technology is good, which it is, It is good. There's no reason we can't start eating some other people's lunch. And there's no reason we can't do it all, you know? We're big babies now.
We're boss babies now. It dawned on me too as like, this is the first episode I'm streaming to LinkedIn, so anyone tuning in on LinkedIn probably is wondering like what the hell's going on with this show. But maybe, I mean, do you have anything actually that you want to talk about, or are we just filibustering trying to make the show as long as possible?
Well, you know, that's always a good thing. I would say something I want to talk about is really my main concern lately is just kind of the sentiment of the community and the ecosystem in general. Sure. You know, a lot of people said, hey, you know, that Shane guy should go. Yeah, you know, and I agreed with it as well. And the Shane guy went, and I thought, hey, everybody's gonna smile and be happy. They were happy for maybe an hour. You know, and that shows that there's a bigger problem at hand. And of course, there's always a bigger problem at hand. But I would just, you know, if I could say anything to peeps out there, it really helps. You know, if you smile, it's more likely that someone else is going to smile with you. I think we need to really have a little bit of trust in the people working, you know, behind closed doors. Give them a little bit more time. They're slow. They're not fast. But I think that real change is coming. And if we can be a little happier in the meantime, that would make being here a lot easier for you know, all of us.
Yeah, I you know, definitely, Gerbert, I get that sense too. You know, what's going on behind closed doors. We're starting to see signals, you know, like you were talking about Rob Paulson, people that are definitely similar to the folks behind closed doors, changing their minds, adopting new ideas, and I agree with you that I think that a lot of times when you feel like giving up the most is when you're closest potentially to that success, and so we could easily mess it up as an ecosystem. I think the only way that this community could really mess things up for this network is not sticking together, right? Not putting differences aside in a lot of ways. And I look at folks like Rob Paulson that I think I mostly disagree with, and there's a lot of distance between someone like him, myself, and I. But the thing is that when you really take a look at someone like myself or Rob Paulson, it's like we have a lot more in common than not, because we hold HBAR and we're obsessed with the network, you know?
Right,
and
we're
it's
all bag holders at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And so I think that's kind of how I want to keep myself in check is, of course, in this kind of frustrating time, you know, I think that it's really easy to see people you disagree with sharing opinions and disagree with them. But I try to remind myself that, like, you know what, just being in the game, just building on this network, just holding HBAR means you have a lot more in common with fellow HBARbarians than not. Now's not a great time to bring out the pitchforks. Now's a time when really, whether it's someone you disagree with, whether it's a competitor of your project, to really kind of align as much as we can, because there's a lot of problems that can't be solved alone, solo, you know?
Right. And I'm going to try to, you know, apply that to myself too. I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect at all. And I'm going to try to, going forward, be a little nicer to people, you know, give people a little more grace, and, you know, practice what I preach and show a little more patience.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's tough to hear. Like, that's, I think, the most frustrating part is all we've heard is be patient, it takes time, it's slow. And I think how I kind of look at it is, well, they've been moving slow in the wrong direction, and now it feels like they may be moving slow in the right direction. And so that's something. And I think the next challenge is kind of what Mance and Charles and these other folks in leadership talk about, Hedera 2.0, is speed an element of that, you know, in any way.
Right. Right. I mean, it should be. I agree with some of the people who are getting a little angry at Charles because, you know, he can pop on a weird private call or semi-private call and say some cool stuff, and oh wow. But I mean, he can also use Twibber,
Yeah.
make a Vibio. Doesn't have to be a lot, but having little points of contact with the community is good. It's the same as with people, right? Like, you're supposed to get a certain amount of physical contact every day to engage your brains. We need that on the internets now.
Yeah, we got to do that. And I think it's time. And I mean, the next governing council meeting is probably, there's a high likelihood that it's tomorrow, to be honest. Usually they're in the middle of the month on a Thursday. So we'll have to see. But if you want to talk about behind closed doors, the most closed and biggest, most important door is the one where the governing council meeting's on the other side. And it'll be really interesting to kind of see if we get more signals going into the end of the year of that change,
And I'm excited for some new big announcements. They got to have something cooking. They had to have been waiting for a lot of this, Shane debacle to be over to announce some cool stuff coming to Hedera. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm shocked sometimes that our conversations, Gerbert, have gotten more serious and very nuanced as time has gone on. We've gone from talking about soup and lizards to really tackling some complex topics. So it's great.
I just want everybody to be happy. I mean, I'm chained to this place. I have to be here, and the basement's filling up with water, and I'm trying to keep breathing. And I'm just like, hey, can somebody grab a bucket with me, please? Can somebody grab a bucket? We're all chained here. I mean, the long-term people, as much as they may complain, we're still here because, I don't know, maybe something's wrong with us. But we're in here for the long haul. And, I've made my peace with that. I'm going down with the ship, baby. But if you can bail out some of the water with me, we can keep swimming.
Yeah, no, great idea. And I feel the same way. And I think that, it's just about sticking together. That's really what it's about. Gerbert the Grelf, appreciate you stopping by. The message is let's all chill out a little bit, You just wink.
I tried.
Holy shit. That's fantastic. Gerbert the Grelf.
I'm not great at winking, but thanks for having me on. Love the show. If anyone's not watching it, they're not watching me say watch it, but watch it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Gerbert, the legend. Always a pleasure having Gerbert on. That wink was a marvel of technology and everything of human achievement, making that wink happen. Wrapping up the show. Obviously, there's an elephant in the room, maybe giraffe in the room. Folks familiar with my episode from March, going back, where I talked about, information from an anonymous source regarding some stuff. The first item was a major institutional access point announcement. This was in March. They said that one was coming in April. That turned out to be the BlackRock news, which obviously, huge, obviously. And then, or maybe it was May. I can't remember. It was the BlackRock stuff. So that was one for two. The second one was a monster use case in Q3. If all goes according to plan, or if all stays on track. That's the thing. And I get questions about this all the time. And I see it out there everywhere, especially on Reddit, of Q3 monster use case. It's kind of like a meme at this point. And maybe that episode will come back to haunt me. I don't know. But obviously we are almost halfway through September. We're a couple weeks away from the end of Q3. So I get asked the question a lot. Do you still believe this is happening according to what the source told you? And I'd encourage people to go back and listen to episode, whatever it was, 118, or I can't remember what it was. It was the episode, the last episode in March, was the episode where I talked about this. But basically, people ask me, what are your thoughts on that? Is it still happening, essentially? The quarter three monster use case. And I think the key thing there is kind of, again, as the source shared with me, and again, this source is, someone that would have visibility on this in the ecosystem, and somebody that, I definitely put the name of the show behind, right? As the show presenting this news with an anonymous source. Obviously, if you're trusting the show, you're trusting the source. And so, and I've been asked, Julie, who's the source? I'm not telling anyone who it is, or who they are. But the thing is the quarter three monster use case happening? I think the caveat there is, as they said, if everything stays on track. And so that's the tough part. I mean, I'll stand by it. The quarter three is not over yet. But the thing that fair enough. If everything stays on track, one could argue that things in the ecosystem have not been on track, right? And the definition of on track being things operating as usual. Obviously, things have not been operating as usual. There's been a lot of movement. There's been a lot of leadership change. There's been a lot of controversy. So, I think that definitely, lowers the likelihood of a quarter three monster use case. Because, of course, a lot of this stuff can't be predicted. It's outside of control. But I would say, one could argue that, things have not been going as planned for better or for worse, right? We've talked about what a benefit that is, right? That this stuff is happening. So it is what it is. Now, if someone were to ask me, is it still even happening? Absolutely. Do I know what exactly it is? No, that was no details were shared with me in regards to that. It was just shared to me as a monster use case. And what that would entail is something using the Hedera network that has a ton of users, or would generate a ton of revenue or a ton of transactions, or open up a ton of access. So that's kind of how I'm qualifying it. I know it was a pretty nebulous description, but again, it's really speaking to the quality of the source. That's all I can say. But yes, I stand by that would be happening. Obviously, again, making the argument that things maybe have, from April till now, or from March until now, when the information was shared with me, maybe things you could say haven't been going according to plan. Sure. Still some time left in quarter three. We'll have to see, but I just wanted to kind of clear the air on that a little bit. I know people ask me about that a lot. Those are my thoughts on it. And we'll just have to see. There's a likelihood that I will just be wrong and the source will be 50% right. So that happens, and definitely, doesn't speak highly of the show in that regard. And that's kind of the nature of the business. If you're going to take a leap of faith on an anonymous source, you really have to put the name of the show behind it. And so, batting 1 for 2, make of it what you will, but that's my thoughts on it. Definitely, I think that it's something like that is still in the hopper. Definitely possibility it's quarter three, but again, you can definitely make the argument that things haven't maybe been going as planned. That'd be maybe a fair assessment. So behind closed doors was the episode 140 of Hashgraph Enthusiast. Great conversation with Gerbert the Grelf just a minute ago. We got 800 people tuned in. Really amazing to see the growth of the show. I think it's great. Love doing the live show. Thank you for sticking around for 2 hours now. This is a longer episode. A lot to talk about this week. And also fantastic conversation with Ashe, Captain Jack HBARK from the Barking Game, on community engagement, thoughts on the future of Hedera, problems in the ecosystem, developing these types of projects, these incentive projects and experiences outside of Hedera, and a fantastic pirate costume and a cameo from Noodles the cat. So, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Another congratulations to Ashe on the new kid. I think that's fantastic. So for me, I think that the key takeaway here this week is, unfortunately, just holding tight. We are in a bit of a holding pattern. And like I said, the signals that we're seeing from behind the closed door is that there is change happening. Like I was talking about with Gerbert the Grelf, right? Is Hedera was moving slowly, maybe in the wrong direction. And now seems like they're moving slowly in the right direction. And that means that hopefully things come to a head and there is some change behind closed doors, and we'll see the results of that before the end of the year. That's the hope. And there are indicators, as many have pointed out in the ecosystem, that this next governing council meeting could be important. And there's a high likelihood that it's happening, maybe tomorrow, but within the coming days for sure. And obviously, it's going to take a little time to see the minutes of that meeting. It's going to take time to see what's going on. But like my conversation from the previous episode last week with the HBAR Bull, I think that I agree with what he says. It's really down to to the end of this year. Before Christmas, Hedera really has to, as an ecosystem, turn it around in a lot of ways. And that's not to say that it's some kind of failure. It's just, this is just the way things go in business. Every network has these struggles of identifying what to go after, adjustments in leadership, changing course. Like, these are just normal things. And so it really is up to leadership in the Hedera organization and others to, move this stuff in the right direction. I think the community's been doing a great job in regards to driving revenue for the network, building use cases on the network, and really standing up this ecosystem. But there are ways as well in which the community can improve. Like Grelf was talking about, right? Is, let's not fight so much. Now's not really the time for that. There's more in common. We have more in common than not. So make of that what you can. But overall, we're like I said, it's like the name of this episode, Behind Closed Doors. We're not behind the closed door. We're on the other side. We got our ear up to the door. We're trying to hear what's going on. And for better or worse, that's where we're at. And it's a tale as old as time, right? In the technology industry for decades and decades and decades. In the crypto industry, right? For years and years and years. Every cycle, every startup, every success and failure, there's a moment like this, right? And we just kind of have to see what's going on. And that's all I can say on that. Also talked about a bunch of cool stuff on this episode. So if you missed it, at the beginning of the episode, I covered top stories in the ecosystem. But that's that for episode 140 of Hashgraph Enthusiasts. The show is live every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Support the show, bark at the show, send HBAR to the show's wallet, subscribe on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, just appreciate everyone tuning in. Great episode, great conversations. Another thank you to Captain Jack HBARK and all that kind of stuff. And with that, take care, everybody. Hello, future. Goodbye, past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/hbar.